Welcome to the ultimate reality check, where global fame, awards, records, and billions in box office earnings still mean almost nothing the moment a child walks into the room. These are the moments that reveal a simple truth. No matter how powerful, celebrated, or influential someone becomes in the world outside, at home they're still just a parent trying, and often failing, to impress their own kids. Hugh Jackman, a global superstar known worldwide for portraying Wolverine in the X-Men franchise across films that have collectively earned billions at the box office, is a perfect example of this contrast. On screen, he embodies one of cinema's most enduring action heroes, fierce, resilient, almost indestructible. He has hosted the Academy Awards, won a Tony Award for his Broadway performances, and built a career defined by versatility and physical intensity. Yet in a quiet family moment, all of that disappears into something far simpler. From another room comes a child's voice delivering a completely different verdict. To them, he is not tough, not cool, and certainly nothing like Wolverine. It is a reminder that no matter how iconic a role becomes globally, children do not measure fame. They measure presence, personality, and everyday dad energy. Emily Blunt, an Academy Award-nominated actress known for critically acclaimed performances in films like The Devil Wears Prada, A Quiet Place, and Oppenheimer, has built a career grounded in emotional precision and commanding screen presence. Yet even that level of refinement dissolves in the intimacy of parenting. During a simple bath time moment with her child, she was met with an unfiltered observation: "Whoa, mama big." There are no statistics or awards that can prepare anyone for that level of honesty. In an industry where appearance is constantly analyzed under global scrutiny, it only takes one small voice to reduce everything to something completely human, unfiltered, and real. Dwayne Johnson, one of Hollywood's highest-paid actors and consistently ranked among the world's biggest box office draws with films grossing well over $10 billion globally, represents physical dominance in popular culture. His image is built on strength, discipline, and larger-than-life charisma. But at home, none of that translates into authority. Instead, he becomes something far more ordinary and far more entertaining. His daughters turn him into a living canvas for imagination, using him as a makeup model where creativity overrides celebrity status. Despite his global reputation as The Rock, he is simply dad, sitting still while childhood creativity takes over without negotiation. Tina Fey, an Emmy-winning writer, comedian, and creator of one of the most influential modern sitcoms, 30 Rock, has often spoken about the illusion of authority in parenting teenagers. In professional life, she has controlled scripts, performances, and entire production environments watched by millions. But at home, influence works differently. Teenagers, neurologically wired for independence and social separation, often prioritize peer perception over parental input. In that dynamic, even a highly accomplished parent becomes someone waiting outside a closed door, carefully timing every interaction, often ignored not out of disrespect, but out of developmental necessity. Zach Galifianakis, known for his work in the Hangover trilogy, films that collectively grossed over $1.4 billion worldwide, has built a career on awkward comedy. Yet even his scripted awkwardness is nothing compared to real-life parenting moments. In one incident, a completely innocent toddler entered during a private bathroom moment and asked a question without any awareness of boundaries or social structure. It is a reminder that children operate outside the frameworks adults spend their entire lives constructing, and in those moments, even experienced performers are left without a script. Steve Harvey, a multi-time Emmy-winning television host and one of the most recognizable figures in comedy and broadcasting, found himself at the intersection of parenting and digital culture. In an era where smartphone usage among teenagers exceeds 90% in many developed regions, privacy becomes increasingly fragile. When his son recorded and shared a personal grooming moment online, it reflected a broader generational shift. Children today are not just observers of their parents' lives, they are documentarians of them. What was once private becomes instantly public, often without permission or context. Anne Hathaway, an Academy Award-winning actress for Les Miserables and one of the most respected performers of her generation, has delivered performances that reach emotional depth on a global scale. Yet at home, her vocal talent meets a very different kind of audience. Research in child development consistently shows that children between ages 3–7 often respond impulsively to repetition and sensory overstimulation. In her case, that translates into a simple but consistent feedback loop: "Mom, no." Despite the Oscars, critical acclaim, and international recognition, the audience that matters most remains entirely unimpressed. Sofia Vergara, known for her Emmy-nominated role on Modern Family and her status as one of television's highest-paid actresses for multiple years, exists in a world where fashion, branding, and public image are carefully curated. However, school environments operate on an entirely different social code. In that setting, her son's instruction to dress like a mom reflects how children simplify identity roles into clear categories, separating celebrity persona from parental function with no overlap between the two. Courtney Cube, a respected journalist reporting on global security and defense issues for major news networks, has operated in high-pressure environments covering geopolitical events and military developments. Live broadcasting typically involves strict timing, scripts, and coordination, yet even the most controlled environments cannot override parenting. When her children appeared during a live segment, it demonstrated a simple truth supported by countless live broadcast interruptions globally. Real life does not pause for production schedules. Ryan Gosling, an Academy Award-winning actor known for films like La La Land and Blade Runner 2049, has built a reputation on emotional subtlety and artistic range. Yet even someone accustomed to critically analyzed performances cannot predict the raw honesty of a child's critique. Standing before the Mona Lisa, one of the most visited artworks in the world, viewed by over 6 million people annually, his daughter's response reduced centuries of artistic admiration into a single blunt sentence: because it is not good. Katy Perry, one of the best-selling music artists of all time with over 143 million records sold worldwide and billions of streams across platforms, is recognized globally by her stage name alone. Yet at home, that same name becomes a tool of authority. When mom stops working, Katy Perry becomes the escalation, proof that children understand hierarchy not through fame, but through impact and attention control. Charlize Theron, an Academy Award-winning actress for Monster, has portrayed some of cinema's most intense and emotionally complex roles, yet even she experienced the generational gap in language evolution. Linguistic studies show that slang among Gen Alpha changes rapidly through social media exposure, often flipping meanings entirely. What sounded like criticism, "your face is eating," was actually a compliment meaning beauty, style, and confidence. It is a small but powerful example of how language shifts faster than interpretation. Robert Trujillo of Metallica, a band that has sold over 125 million albums worldwide and remains one of the most influential rock groups in history, represents musical legacy at its highest level. Yet in a household context, repeated exposure reduces even legendary performance into familiarity. Psychological studies on habituation suggest that repeated stimuli lose emotional impact over time. To his children, years of guitar practice and performance simply become normal sound, no longer distinguished from everyday background noise. Across all these moments, a pattern becomes unmistakably clear. Global fame, financial success, awards, and cultural influence create a world that feels enormous, but within a home, those metrics collapse entirely. Children do not respond to box office numbers, streaming records, or critical acclaim. They respond to presence, consistency, and emotional honesty. And in that world, every celebrity becomes the same thing again, not an icon, not a legend, but simply a parent trying to be heard over the most powerful force in the universe, a child who tells the truth exactly as they see it. Kristen Bell, the voice of Anna in Disney's Frozen franchise, a global phenomenon that has generated over $2.7 billion in box office revenue across 2 films and inspired one of the most commercially successful soundtracks in animation history, has experienced firsthand how little global popularity matters inside a household. Despite being part of a cultural milestone that dominates children's entertainment worldwide, her own daughters consistently choose Elsa over Anna when selecting costumes. Even when she proposes a role reversal, the answer remains firm and immediate: no. It highlights a simple but consistent behavioral pattern seen in child psychology. Children aged roughly 4-10 tend to prioritize personal emotional attachment over external cultural influence, meaning even billion-dollar characters do not guarantee preference at home. Lisa Kudrow, best known for her role as Phoebe Buffay in Friends, which aired for 10 seasons, 1994-2004, received 62 Primetime Emmy Award nominations during its run and continues to earn an estimated hundreds of millions of dollars annually through syndication and streaming rights. It's at the center of one of television's most enduring legacies. Despite this, her son shows no meaningful interest in the series. This reflects a broader media consumption shift. Modern viewers, particularly Gen Z and Gen Alpha, now have access to over 500+ hours of content uploaded every minute across platforms like YouTube alone, meaning even globally dominant shows compete with an unprecedented volume of new entertainment. Cultural legacy, once dominant across generations, now competes with algorithm-driven personalization. Comedian Jim Gaffigan, a five-time Grammy nominee and one of the most streamed stand-up comedians on platforms like Netflix, often describes family vacations in statistical contrast to expectation. While the global travel industry markets vacations as stress reduction experiences, studies in family psychology consistently show that approximately 60–70% of parents report increased stress during travel due to disrupted routines, sleep schedules, and financial pressure. Gaffigan's observation that vacations are essentially arguments in a different location reflects this reality. Instead of reducing conflict, travel often relocates existing family dynamics into unfamiliar environments, such as hotels or resorts, without changing the underlying behavioral patterns. Gordon Ramsay, a chef holding 17 Michelin stars across his restaurant empire and operating one of the most commercially successful hospitality brands in the world, represents extreme professional discipline. His media presence spans over 20 television shows globally, reaching hundreds of millions of viewers annually. Yet at home, according to his daughter Tilly Ramsay, this high-intensity persona dissolves almost completely. Research in behavioral psychology supports this contrast. Individuals in high-stress professions often exhibit a role relaxation effect at home, where strict external identity gives way to more playful, informal behavior in safe environments. At home, he is not a culinary authority. He is simply a father engaging in everyday family life. Even Kobe Bryant, a five-time NBA champion, 18-time All-Star, and one of only a few players in league history to score over 33,000 career points, experienced a reversal of authority within his household. Despite decades of elite-level training and widely studied Mamba mentality, his daughters would sometimes defer to external coaching instructions during play. This reflects a known principle in developmental psychology. Children between ages 6–14 often place higher trust in structured authority figures outside the family, such as coaches or teachers, due to perceived neutrality and expertise validation. In these moments, even one of basketball's greatest minds becomes secondary to institutional instruction. Johnny Knoxville, known for the Jackass franchise, which has grossed over $1 billion globally across films and television adaptations, built his career on controlled chaos and physical extremes. However, parent-teacher conferences represent an entirely different kind of unpredictability. Educational research shows that over 80% of teachers consider communication with parents a critical factor in behavioral development discussions, but no statistical model accounts for the unpredictability of children's own storytelling. In Knoxville's case, the situation escalated into an unexpectedly graphic and socially awkward explanation from his child, demonstrating that while stunt performance can be scripted or planned, parenting moments are entirely unscripted and unfiltered. Across all of these cases, a clear pattern emerges supported by both cultural observation and behavioral data. Fame, awards, financial success, and global recognition have measurable impact in public domains, but almost no statistical influence within domestic environments. In the home, authority structures shift dramatically. Children aged 3–12, who make up the core demographic in many celebrity households, respond primarily to emotional familiarity, routine interaction, and immediate perception rather than external status indicators. Whether it is billion-dollar film franchises, Emmy-winning sitcoms, Michelin-starred kitchens, NBA championships, or global comedy tour, the household remains a statistically independent environment from public achievement. In that space, identity resets completely. Every achievement collapses into a single role, parent, and every child becomes the most honest evaluator of all, unaffected by awards, records, or reputation. Stephen Curry, widely regarded as the greatest shooter in NBA history, has built a career defined by measurable dominance at the highest level of professional basketball. As of recent NBA records, he is a four-time NBA champion, a two-time league MVP, including the first-ever unanimous MVP in 2016, and the all-time leader in three-pointers made in both regular season and playoff history, surpassing 3,500 career regular season threes. He has played in more than 900 NBA games and consistently ranks among the league's most influential players in terms of offensive efficiency and global popularity. Yet despite performing in arenas filled with up to 20,000 spectators per game and operating under extreme competitive pressure, his household environment functions under an entirely different system of authority. In that setting, his daughter's simple instruction to be quiet overrides everything associated with his professional identity. This reflects a well-documented psychological principle in family dynamics. children between ages 3–12 respond primarily to immediate environmental control and emotional familiarity rather than external status indicators. In other words, while Curry commands stadiums, at home he operates within a completely separate social hierarchy where parental authority is constantly negotiated in real time and often reversed. Chris Hemsworth, globally recognized for portraying Thor in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is part of a franchise that has generated over $29 billion in global box office revenue, making it one of the most commercially successful cinematic universes in history. His portrayal of a mythological godlike figure places him within a narrative framework built on strength, authority, and near-limitless power. However, real-world parenting introduces a very different type of challenge, one that is not measured in box office figures or screen time dominance. In interviews, Hemsworth has described how his daughter's questions often revolve around complex, unfiltered topics such as identity, purpose, and everyday life, questions that do not follow scripted dialogue or predictable logic. Developmental psychology research shows that children aged 4–10 often engage in rapid associative questioning, moving between abstract and concrete ideas without transitional reasoning. This means even highly articulate adults can be caught off guard, not because the questions are difficult in structure, but because they are entirely unfiltered. In those moments, the contrast is stark. A man who plays a god on screen becomes simply a parent attempting to respond honestly without a script, edit, or retake. Across both examples, the contrast between public achievement and private reality becomes statistically and socially significant. Professional sports and entertainment operate within structured systems. NBA games are regulated by 48-minute formats, strict officiating rules, and performance analytics tracking everything from shooting efficiency, true shooting percentage often above 65% for elite players like Curry in peak seasons, to player impact ratings. Similarly, Hollywood franchises like Marvel operate on budgets exceeding $150–250 million per film, global distribution networks, and carefully controlled narrative arcs. However, household environments operate without measurable performance metrics. There are no statistics for parental authority, no rankings for emotional influence, and no structured evaluation system for everyday interactions. Instead, influence is determined by immediacy, consistency, and emotional trust. Studies in family psychology consistently show that children prioritize relational proximity over external status, meaning that even individuals with global recognition are evaluated in the same informal framework as any other parent. This creates a consistent pattern across high-profile families. Public identity and private identity function as two entirely separate systems. One is governed by data, performance, and global audiences measured in millions or billions. The other is governed by daily interaction, emotional responsiveness, and unstructured communication that cannot be quantified. Ultimately, whether it is a 4-time NBA champion being told to lower his voice, or a Marvel god struggling to answer spontaneous questions about life, the conclusion remains consistent and data-backed in behavioral terms. External achievement has little predictive value in domestic authority structures. At home, the hierarchy resets completely. And in that reset, every globally recognized figure becomes statistically indistinguishable in one key category, parenthood, where the only consistent metric is not fame, wealth, or performance, but the unpredictable and absolute honesty of children.